Okay, so I think I am live here. I am streaming through Ecamm, so I'm on a minute early just to make sure I'm actually coming through. So it is just about 3 o'clock, and I want to make sure I'm coming through. Okay. So if anybody is on and wants to just let me know if I am coming through on the group, because I'm coming through Ecamm Live and I want to make sure you guys can all see me before we get started. Okay, awesome. Hi, Kaylee. Great, so you guys can see me. Awesome. Okay, because I'm going to probably close out my Facebook while I'm streaming just so I don't get bombarded with notifications. All right, here we go. Oh, uh-oh. Sorry about that, you guys. I don't know what I just did there. This happened to me once before, too. Oops. Oh, no. I will definitely get this. Let me just fix this, you guys. Oops. Default. Nope. Oh, there I am. Okay, but I don't know why it's not big. Okay, it's fine. We'll go with it. All right, awesome. So, welcome, whoever is on. I know Kaylee's on. I don't know if anybody else is on, but welcome to the 5-day challenge, Stop the Hurt, how to turn painful conflict into peaceful communication. So in the next 5 days, we are going to be talking all about ways that you can improve your communication in your relationship. Okay, so today we're going to be talking specifically about the word communication and what that actually means. Because what happens is, and this happens often with, I would say 90% of the folks that I work with, and I would say also for probably 80% of the women that joined in the group, when I ask, what is the biggest challenge? What's the number one struggle in your relationship? And people will always say communication. So it's very common. But here's what I want to do today. I want us to break that down because the word communication is very vague, right? That could mean a lot of different things to a lot of people, right? It could mean, I have like this continuum where there are those people that like fight all the time. They bicker a lot. Every little thing is an argument. They're always kind of like tense around each other, and it's just like, man, they're at each other a lot. And then somewhere in the middle is like people not, I mean, as far as my continuum goes, this is what I see is there are then those that kind of avoid, don't say much, they want to keep the peace, and they do that for a while until things build up, and then all of a sudden they explode and they have a big fight. And then it sort of just slips back into the usual pattern. We kind of pretend it didn't happen, and then we go back to life as usual until the next time. And then on the far end of the continuum are those that really avoid. So they might never fight or every once in a great while. So they really avoid bringing things up or saying things that might upset their partner. And so they avoid so they can avoid conflict, so they can avoid fighting, so they can avoid the discomfort that comes from bringing up hard stuff. So again, what I want to do today is figure out what does, if you're somebody that's thinking to yourself, yes, we can't communicate. I can't communicate with my partner. It's just miserable. What is that for you? What does that look like? And if anybody is on and wants to share in the comments, happy to speak to that. So, and as far as like that continuum, do you recognize yourself in one of those places? Are you somebody that like fights all the time? Somebody that holds back until we have a big blowout, or then somebody that really avoids, or somewhere in between, something that maybe looks like a completely different version of that I didn't actually talk about. Um, does anybody want to share where they fall in that continuum, or what poor communication looks like in your relationship? And if you don't want to share in the comments, that's fine too, because this is going to be part of what I have for like your first assignment. And I guess I just want to make sure too that I'm still broadcasting. So, Kaylee, if you're still on, oops, good Lord, why does that keep doing that? All right, I apologize, you guys, for this. For me for doing this. I don't know why this keeps doing this. I probably should just broadcast straight through Facebook, and then I wouldn't have this issue. Okay, there I am. Oh, okay, Anne, so you can totally see. Yep, okay, perfect. Okay, so getting back to the continuum. So just keep that in mind. If nobody wants to share right now, that's fine. But that is going to be part of what you're going to do on your own, is determining like what does communication. Okay, so Amy is saying, I'm an over communicator, so I talk things through, and he's not much, minimal. He talks minimally. Okay. And so, Amy, does that end up causing arguments between you guys, friction? Like, how do you notice how you end up feeling, or how do you respond if he doesn't sort of reciprocate that or engage in the same way? Is it a problem for you? So that's kind of what you want to think about, is like, and that's sort of the other piece of this, is like, okay, so identifying where you fall on that continuum, but what's the pattern that happens in your relationship? Because until we identify what's not working, we can't really fix it. So the way to determine what the pattern is, okay, so you get triggered by something that your partner says or does. So he does X, whatever that is. It could be anything. It depends on your particular situation. When he does X or says X, I respond by doing Y. So, for example, I'll share an example from my own marriage. So I've been married for 20 years, and so yes, it is a problem at times. Okay, I'm just responding to Amy. Amy responded back. It's a problem at times, and he is the one to listen, yet doesn't need to share a lot. Yeah. And I think that, Amy, that's true of a lot of men, that they often don't feel the same need that we do to share. If he's a good listener, then kudos to you. That's awesome. But I guess I would just think about, for you, like, what do you make that mean? If it's a problem at times, like, what do you make it mean that he's quieter and doesn't need to share? And why is it a problem? And so going back to identifying the pattern. So I was going to share with you something that used to come up in my own marriage, probably, and still there are times, and I wrote a blog post about this. There are times where I still get triggered by this. So my husband is much like you're saying, Amy. He's not a huge talker, although the older he gets, the more he seems to like to chatter. But years ago, he's somebody that processes slower than I do. And so like I like to talk quick, and when I'm talking to my girlfriends, and I'm sure all of you women can relate, we just sort of we can talk back and forth really quickly. We can even change topics and still keep up with each other, and we respond quickly, and it's like boom, boom, boom. It flows really easily, naturally. We can really just pace with each other really fluidly. And so when I would talk to my husband or say something or even ask him a question, or I might just make a statement waiting for him to acknowledge, like a like us women would do, to at least let the other person know that we hear them. And so I would say something. I'd either A, ask a question, or B, just make a statement, comment on something, and there'd be dead silence. And so he wouldn't say anything. And I would immediately get angry and yell at him and say, oh, are you not listening to me? Did you not hear me? And he would say, I heard you and I'm thinking. And so back in the day, even though he said, yes, I heard you, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, it still wasn't okay for me. It still wasn't enough. And I didn't even hear that part of it because I was already too enraged that I felt like he was just dismissing me or not listening to me or ignoring me. That's what I made it mean. And then I would just be angry. And so no matter what he said or any attempt that he made to try and say, listen, hey, I want to hear it. I was listening to you. I was already shut down. I was like, nope, forget it. You weren't listening to me. And then, so like not even giving him the opportunity to explain himself and then give him an opportunity to respond. So I did that for a lot of years. And so that was sort of my part. He would do X. His X was he would be quiet when I said something initially. And my response would be, I would get furious and lash out at him and criticize him and blame him and yell at him and make it mean that he's ignoring me and he doesn't care. So that's an example of like a pattern. And so each and every time there was like a delay in him responding to something I said, we would play out this same pattern until I stopped doing that. Right? It's as we both got better at doing each part a little bit better. I think he tends to respond a little quicker, but that didn't happen first. I actually changed first, and I stopped reacting that way. I stopped being so furious with him and actually started to understand, like, okay, he probably does process slower than me. And so maybe I need to actually hear that. I'm wanting him to hear me, but I'm not hearing him at all. And so, like I said before, there are still times where I get triggered when I feel like he's not responding quick enough, but I don't make it mean anything about me, which is so freeing, right? Because I don't think that it's like a personal affront. I don't personalize what he has said, so I don't have to actually carry around that anger, which is great. So, but it takes time to get there, right? And so, again, the first part is identifying your pattern. And so I don't know if that's like, is it something you know right off the top of your head how it plays out? Or is it something you feel like, oh, I need to think about this and figure out exactly what it is how I react when I get triggered? What are my triggers? There's so many things to like, kind of when you've got sort of the big title of communication, it's not going well, we can't communicate. And then there's really breaking that down and digging deeper, like what really happens in those interactions. So we covered like, where are you on the continuum? We're on the one end where we fight and bicker and we at each other all the time. Every little argument, every little conversation turns into an argument. You find yourself saying we fight over the stupidest things all the time. Or you're somebody more in the middle where you kind of avoid or walk on eggshells a little bit because you don't want to have a fight, but then it gets too much and you have an explosive argument. And then you kind of go back to your usual. And then on the other end is we really avoid having any kind of conflict at all cost. And some people stay like that for a very long time. And so that was the first piece that we talked about. The second piece is identifying the pattern. And this for you is going to be knowing, when do I get triggered? What happens? What triggers me? Is it something my partner says or does? And then what do I do? What is my reaction to that? Because that's also going to be part of the assignment. And so the other piece of today that I wanted to speak about, so that's sort of like, what does communication look like? The other piece I wanted to share with you guys is that one of the things that happens when couples come in to see me, or even working with women in particular, like alone, to help, because one person, and that's all about what this group is one person can change the relationship, because the relationship, your interactions are like a system, right? They're like this well-oiled machine, or it's like a dance. So if you have a particular dance moves and you and your partner have the same moves over and over and over, then you keep the dance is always the same, right? And if one person changes their dance moves, what happens? The whole dance changes. I mean, there's no way the dance could be the same if one person changes, right? So that's why I'm in full belief that if one person changes what they're doing, it can totally change the relationship. And I know it because that's the story of my marriage. So this is what communication is looking like once we break it down. The other piece is a lot of the reason that these patterns keep repeating is because you're trying to solve the wrong problem. And so what do I mean by that? People, again, couples or women that come in to see me to try and fix communication issues, they want to get to solving their issues. So they get caught up in the content of like, oh, well, when I want to go out with my friends, he gets really mad and I don't understand why he gets so mad. And then he might start saying something about, well, she shouldn't be going out. I don't understand this. Doesn't she want to spend time with me? So they're getting into the content of the issues. So the issue for them might be, well, one of us wants to stay home more and spend time together, and the other one wants to go out and hang with friends more. And so people think that the solution is, okay, we're going to go see Denise and she'll help us figure out who's right and who's wrong and what we should do, and what a married couple should be doing. Married couples should be spending more time together, or a married couple should have outside interests, and they look to me to sort of mediate that issue. But that's not how it works at all. And so what I do with people is I shift them away from focusing on the content, the specific issue, the specific problem that they've named. And why is that? Because you can't get to solving your issues until you have a better way of talking with each other. So let me say it again. You can't get to solving your problems until you have a better way to talk to each other. So does that make sense? Or do you know what I mean by that? Like the process by which you talk to each other, how you talk to each other, is what you need to get at first. Because until you learn how to talk to each other differently, you'll never be able to get to some kind of negotiation or problem solving, because you're too busy, each of you, fighting with each other, arguing about your position, perhaps blaming the other person, wanting the other person to hear you, but not really hearing each other, right? It's really like you're just standing your ground, you've got your heels dug in, and you're arguing about who's right and who's wrong. Does that sound familiar to anybody who's watching? I'm just going to take a sip of water. And if it's not that, then it might be some other version of that. But whatever the pattern is, it's typically that you are this inability to give up your need to be right, that it's my way or it's his way, and then you just get sort of gridlocked, right? And you don't know how to have a conversation where you can hear each other, where you can talk calmly, respectfully, with curiosity, all the things that go into um, being able to have a good dialogue. So that's why I say most people are trying to solve the issues themselves without actually having a good way of talking about the issues. And that's what these 5 days are going to be about, is really diving deeper into how do you create a different process for talking to each other? How do you create a different pattern? How do you interrupt the current patterns that are at play and learn a new way to talk to each other? Okay. So does anybody have any comments or anything they want to share about their own experience, or just let me know that you're still listening? You could even just throw some smiley faces in the comments to let me know you're still there. And is this helpful? Just taking a quick look at my notes. Okay, because I can't see if anybody's on or not. Okay, so I'm going to just recap at this point, and then I will give you the assignment for day 1, and then we will be done for today. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time. Very helpful. Awesome. Thank you, Amy, for your comment. Okay, so recapping about the 2 things that we talked about today. Number 1 is if communication is the issue in your relationship, we want to break that down and figure out what exactly that means in your relationship. It's different for everybody. It means something different in each relationship. But until you figure out what that means, the idea that communication is not good, we can't communicate, is just far too vague. And so what I would do with somebody that I'm working with is exactly what I'm doing with you guys here. Let's break that down. Let's see exactly what that looks like. Okay, and then I shared a continuum, and you could either identify with one of these 3, or you have another version that's your own. These are just the 3 that I see a lot in my own practice, is those that fight all the time, that are at each other frequently, everything turns into an argument. Again, those that kind of walk on eggshells, avoid a bit, and then eventually explode, and then they go back to business as usual until the next one. And then those on the far end of that spectrum are those that really are very avoidant, don't bring up issues at all, and then they really need my help to get them to start talking about the hard stuff, because maybe they haven't ever fought because they're just not bringing up issues at all. So identify yourself on that continuum, whether it's one of those 3 or some version of that, your own version of that, and then identifying the pattern. When I get triggered by my partner, when he does X or says X, I respond by doing whatever it is that you do. And I gave you my own example of when my husband would have a pause after after I said something or asked a question, and what I made that mean and how I reacted. And so the other piece of that I'm going to ask you to do in this assignment is, what would better communication look like, right? So it's first identifying what's not working, how it's not going well, but then what do you really want it to look like? If you get triggered and you do this when you get triggered, whether it's, I yell, I blame, I criticize, or maybe you're somebody that shuts down, withdraws, and then you stay angry and just kind of shut your partner out. How do you want to be during those difficult conversations? How do you want to be when you get triggered? And so identifying what's not working, but what you would like it to look like instead. And don't worry, because I am going to put a post up with all of this stuff that I'm asking you to do here. And so then the other piece of today was that you can't get to solving your problems until you learn a different way of talking with each other. And so many people stay looping in these arguments because they're trying to solve the issues instead of figuring out, well, not figuring out, because most people don't know how to do it differently. And that's part of the reason you also stay stuck. But you're staying stuck in the cycle because you're trying to solve the issues, but you don't know how to talk to each other in a way that you can productively negotiate these things, right? And so it's really about interrupting these patterns that have been well practiced so you can develop new ways of doing it, so then you could actually get to solving and negotiating the issues, whatever those are. And then I think there was one other thing I wanted you guys to do. Maybe that, I think that was it. Okay, and like I said, I will post it in the group. So if you're not remembering it off the top of your head, and if there's something I'm missing, I will also put that in there. So what's happening now that's not working, identifying the pattern, and then specifically what would better communication look like for you. And I guess the other piece that I just wanted to say before I hop off is, like, I want you to know that these kinds of patterns in relationships are so common. So I don't want you to think that there must be something wrong with us or me. A lot of people think, oh my God, we must be really messed up that we can't do this. I want you to just do away with that thought completely, because these patterns are completely common. They're normal, and you're not, this is something my coach says to us, you're not uniquely fucked up, right? It's just our human brain and the way we get in our own ways. And so none of that is a problem, especially if you've decided, I want it to be different and I want to do something about this, right? So much of the time we have judgment about ourselves, and that's what gets in the way. We think, oh my God, there must be something really wrong with us. We should be able to figure this out on our own. Why can't we? Everybody else's relationship must be so good except for mine. And thoughts like that really keep us stuck. So I just want to share with you that it's completely common. I just want to normalize it for you. I want you to understand there's not something uniquely messed up about you, and that if you are doing the work of this 5-day challenge, this is like a really great first step to unlocking from the current patterns in your relationship that aren't working. So you're in good hands. So I think that is pretty much all for today. And if anyone has any questions at all, just let me know. You can put them in the Facebook group, because I will be in there tonight. Later on, I'll be posting the homework assignment. And I hope you guys are able to join again during the week. I'm going to be going live every day for the rest of the week at 3 o'clock. And if you're not able to join live, then the replay will be there for you. But it's actually way more fun when people show up live. So I would love to have you if you can join, because it just feels so much more energizing when people are interacting and sharing comments. So I appreciate those that have stayed on to watch. All right, guys, have a wonderful day, and thanks for being here.